The cabin stood nestled at the edge of the ominous forest of forgotten souls, a place that locals whispered about only in hushed tones. The Davis family had built it years ago, seeking solitude and peace, far away from the chaos of the modern world. Little did they know that their quest for tranquility would lead them into the heart of a nightmare beyond their darkest imaginations. The Davis family consisted of Mark, a weary middle-aged man with a salt and pepper beard, his wife Lisa, an artist with a penchant for the mystical, and their two children, Olivia, a bright and inquisitive girl of 12, and Ethan, a quiet and introverted boy of 10. They had moved to the cabin hoping to escape the stresses of city life and to reconnect as a family. The cabin itself was quaint and charming, a rustic retreat made of weathered wood and surrounded by towering trees. A narrow path led from the front porch into the depths of the forest of forgotten souls, a place whose name alone sent shivers down the spines of the bravest souls. Despite the warnings from the locals, the Davis family dismissed the superstitions as mere folklore, believing they could find peace in the forest's isolation. The first few weeks were idyllic. The family spent their days hiking, fishing in the nearby lake, and exploring the untouched beauty of the forest. Lisa, in particular, found inspiration for her art in the tranquil surroundings. She painted scenes of ethereal trees and shadowy figures that seemed to emerge from the very soul of the forest. But as the days turned into weeks, a subtle unease began to settle over the family. It started with the sounds, a distant whisper in the wind, a rustling in the underbrush, and a mournful howling at night. Mark dismissed it as mere forest noises, but Lisa couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more to it, something haunting and unnatural. One evening, as the family gathered around the fireplace, Olivia spoke up. "I heard someone calling my name in the forest today," she said, her voice trembling. Mark and Lisa exchanged worried glances. "It must have been your imagination, sweetie," Mark assured her, though his eyes betrayed his unease. But Olivia was adamant. "No, Dad, it was real. I heard it clear as day, like someone was standing right behind me." Ethan, who had been silent throughout the conversation, suddenly piped up. "I heard it too, Dad. And I saw something moving among the trees." Lisa's eyes widened. "What did you see, Ethan?" He hesitated, as if afraid to put his thoughts into words. A shadow with eyes that glowed in the dark." The unease that had settled over the family now deepened into a sense of dread. That night, they locked all the doors and windows, and Mark kept a shotgun by his side. But it was impossible to ignore the eerie howling that echoed through the forest, like the mournful cries of lost souls. As the days passed, the Davis family's isolation became more pronounced. They felt as if an invisible barrier had formed around their cabin, trapping them in the midst of the malevolent forest. Lisa's once inspiring paintings took on a darker tone, her art now filled with twisted trees and grotesque figures that seemed to beckon her into the woods. One night, as Mark sat by the fire, he heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps outside. His heart pounded in his chest as he grabbed the shotgun and moved cautiously to the window. What he saw sent a shiver down his spine. A shadowy figure with glowing eyes standing just beyond the cabin's porch. He shouted, "Who's out there?" but received no reply. The figure seemed to melt into the darkness, leaving Mark to wonder if it had ever been there at all. The following morning, Mark decided it was time to confront the source of their terror. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of determination, he ventured into the forest, leaving his family behind. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something in the woods that needed to be found, something that was driving them all to the brink of madness. The forest was a labyrinth of towering trees and creeping vines, and the further Mark ventured, the more disoriented he became. Time seemed to lose all meaning as he stumbled through the underbrush, his flashlight flickering in the darkness. He called out for Olivia, Ethan, and Lisa, but his voice was swallowed by the oppressive silence. As Mark pressed deeper into the forest, he began to hear whispers that seemed to emanate from the very trees themselves. They spoke of ancient curses and vengeful spirits, of souls lost to the forest's insatiable hunger. Mark's heart raced as he realized that the legends of the Forest of Forgotten Souls were not mere folklore but a chilling reality. Suddenly, he saw a flicker of movement ahead, a figure with glowing eyes, just like the one he had seen outside the cabin. It beckoned him deeper into the forest, its form shifting and changing as it moved. Felt a compulsion to follow, to discover the truth behind the forest's malevolence. Hours turned into days, and Mark's family grew increasingly frantic as they waited for his return. Lisa's once inspiring paintings had taken on a nightmarish quality, her brushstrokes filled with anguish and despair. Olivia and Ethan huddled together in fear, their once bright eyes now haunted by the terror that lurked in the shadows. One evening, as Lisa gazed out of the window, she saw a faint light moving in the distance, a feeble glow in the heart of the forest. Hope surged within her as she realized it could only be Mark's flashlight. Without hesitation, she grabbed a flashlight of her own and shouted for the children to stay behind. Lisa ventured into the forest, her footsteps echoing in the silence. The whispers grew louder, their words filling her mind with dread. She called out for Mark, her voice trembling with fear, but received no reply. The forest seemed to close in around her, its oppressive darkness threatening to consume her very soul. As she followed the faint light deeper into the forest, she stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an eerie, otherworldly glow. In the center of the clearing stood Mark, his eyes vacant, his body swaying as if in a trance. The source of the glow was a colossal tree, its twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Lisa rushed to her husband's side, shaking him desperately. "Mark, snap out of it. We need to get out of here." But Mark remained unresponsive, lost in whatever spell the forest had cast upon him. Lisa turned her attention to the tree, realizing that it was the epicenter of the forest's malevolence. Its branches seemed to writhe and twist, as if alive, and the whispers grew louder, their words now a sinister incantation. Determined to free her family from the forest's grip, Lisa grabbed a nearby branch and swung it with all her might at the cursed tree. The impact sent shockwaves through the forest, and the tree emitted a spine-chilling scream that echoed through the woods. The glowing eyes that had haunted the Davis family blinked out one by one, and the oppressive presence that had held them captive began to dissipate. With great effort, Lisa managed to break Mark free from the trance, and together they stumbled back toward the cabin, leaving the cursed tree behind. The whispers faded, and the forest seemed to release its hold on them, as if satisfied with the torment it had inflicted. When they finally reached the cabin, Olivia and Ethan rushed to embrace their parents, their tears of relief mingling with their cries of joy. The Davis family had survived the Forest of Forgotten Souls, but they would never forget the horrors they had witnessed. In the years that followed, they abandoned the cabin and returned to the world they had sought to escape. Lisa's art once again bloomed with color and life, and the children found solace in the safety of a normal childhood. But the memories of their time in the forest of forgotten souls would forever haunt their dreams, a reminder of the vengeful spirits that lurked in the shadows, waiting to ensnare the unwary souls who dared to venture too close to its heart.